All right, boys, what's going on? We're here again with Match Week 17 predictions for the Premier League. As always, let's do a recap of Match Week 16. Match Week 16 was pretty tough. Wolves versus Ipswich. It ends 2-1 to Ipswich. I had 1-1 Wolves. It was 1-1 till the very end. And of course, Ipswich with the late goal ruins that correct score and the result. Newcastle, Leicester. I had 3-1 for Newcastle. They win 4-0. I'll take that one. Liverpool versus Fulham was one of the shockers of the match week. I had 2-1 for Liverpool. They end up drawing 2-2. Arsenal versus Everton ends 0-0 as the other shocker of the match week. I had 2-0 for Arsenal. Nottingham Forest wins 2-1. I had 2-1 for Villa. Brighton versus Crystal Palace. I had 1-1 draw. Somehow, some way, Crystal Palace ends up with the upset and wins 3-1. The Manchester Derby. I had 2-1 for City. It ends 2-1 United. The Manchester Derby was going pretty well. I thought the 1-0 at halftime could result in a 2-1 for City, but quite the opposite. Manchester United end up putting in 2 goals and win the match 2-1. Southampton versus Tottenham. I had 3-2 to Tottenham, which I thought was a very spicy result. There was 5 goals. They just happened to all be for Tottenham. Tottenham win 5-0. Chelsea versus Brentford. The correct score of the match week. I had 2-1 for Chelsea. They win 2-1. Bournemouth versus West Ham. I had 2-0 for Bournemouth. It ends 1-1. It was a very rough match week for my 1x2 results. I got 3 out of 10 1x2 results right with 1 correct score. So I mentioned it a little bit in the last video about how someone in the community had created a table that gave all my statistics for each individual market through all my Premier League predictions. And this is what it looks like. If I could get a better graphic for this, I'll try to show it off in the next video. This is the overall statistics through match week 16. Every single prediction has been recorded. The odds have been taken off of another website where it shows the closing odds. Moving forward, though, I will just use whatever flash score shows. The overall percentage there is your return if you had bet 1 unit stakes on every single prediction I've done. So that means if you had put 1 unit on every correct score, 1 unit on every 1x2, 1 unit on every both teams to score, and 1 unit on every over under 2.5 market. So if you had put 1 unit on every correct score I've taken, that would be 159 correct scores. You'd be up 14.78% ROI on that. I've gotten 20 correct scores. The 1x2 market is by far my worst market. I am negative 6.42%. And I mean, it does make sense to me, right? We go over these predictions and whatnot. We go over the recent matches, and 1x2 is difficult, right? There's a lot of upsets that happen, and when you get something right on the 1x2 market, it normally is a more obvious play. For both teams to score, I've gotten 61% of them right with a ROI of 3.12%, and the over under 2.5. I've gotten 87 right with the ROI being 1.14%. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this, but we'll see how this ends up over time. I'll try to keep showing you guys this so you guys can see basically all the extra stats as well. But overall, it's nice to see myself in the green here. I mean, I've only been following the Prem on this type of level for about 2.5 years. Before that, it was strictly just from a FIFA, just casual perspective. So it's pretty nice, but it's still a long season, so we'll see how we'll go. All right, boys, if you guys haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm about 20 subscribers away from 5,000, and we're looking to get that before the year ends. Let's get to match week 17. All right, so we have Aston Villa and Manchester City. So we have Manchester City on 2.1 odds, and now we're finally seeing the books kind of adjust to the whole Manchester City being pretty terrible right now. So they are sitting on 2.1. Aston Villa sitting at 3.2 with the draw at 3.75. So the over under is 3, and the both teams to score is sitting on 1.5. Aston Villa at home are coming off a nice 1-0 win against Southampton. With Manchester City, I don't even know the last time we've seen Manchester City's away form look like this. Like, this is crazy. So it is kind of surprising with that recent away form. They're still 2.1, and now I think people are kind of getting upset. I think people are just strictly going against Manchester City. For some reason, I feel so weird about going against Manchester City because at this point, I haven't been doing it, and I just feel like the second I do start going against them, they're gonna win, right? So it's kind of the same idea I get for betting overall. When someone is backing a trend, my thought is always, if you've been backing the trend, then you keep backing it, right? You're already in profit from doing that. But if you've been either not backing the trend or going against the trend, it seems unwise to now go in the direction of Aston Villa here. The recent results may not really help us too much because we know Manchester City's form is absolutely crazy right now, but they have beaten Villa 4-1. They lost 1-0 to Villa. They beat Villa 3-1, 1-1 draw, and 3-2 win. So this is not going to help us at all considering how we are viewing Manchester City at the moment. As much as I don't want to do it, as much as it does kill me to do it because I know how Manchester City has been recently, I'm still going to go with a Manchester City 1-0 win over Aston Villa. Brentford versus Nottingham Forest. So we see Brentford Brentford at 2.15, Nottingham Forest at 3.1, and the draw at 3.6. The both teams to score sits at 1.62, which is a bit surprising. I would have thought it'd been a little bit lower than that. The over-under sits at about 2.753. We do know Brentford at home have been incredible, right? This is not surprising at all to us. Nottingham Forest away have been a little bit back and forth, with their only 2 losses in the last 5 being against Arsenal and Manchester City, which aren't the worst losses away from home. For Brentford and Nottingham Forest, I'm going to go with a 2-0 Brentford win. Ipswich Town versus Newcastle. We see Ipswich at 4.5, Newcastle at 1.72, and the draw at 3.9. Over-under for this match sits at about 2.75 to 3, with the both teams to score at about 1.57. Pretty consistent, nothing too crazy with that. Ipswich have not gotten I don't think they've gotten a win this year at home. No, they have not. They're still searching for their first win at home. Newcastle away from home is the most inconsistent team I've ever seen. We have a draw, loss, win, draw, loss. We look at their recent head-to-heads and we realize that we can't use it at all because they've both been in the championship last time they played. So I think looking at the odds here, Newcastle at 1.7 does seem pretty interesting when you combine it with the fact that they are giving Ipswich a goal. The over-under sits at about 3. Something about this match, though, makes me feel like when people see Newcastle at 1.7, they're just going to pile on. They're just going to pile on Newcastle, especially with them just beating Leicester 4-0. I feel like that could be a little bit of an overcompensation on Newcastle here. So for Ipswich and Newcastle, I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. West Ham versus Brighton. We see West Ham at 2.9, Brighton at 2.25, and the draw at 3.7. Over-under for this match is at about 3. Both teams' score sits at about 1.5. West Ham at home. We do know the last match they had was 2-1 win against Wolves here. Brighton away from home. They've had, this is very inconsistent away from home, right? A win against Newcastle, a loss against Liverpool, a win against Bournemouth, a loss against Fulham, and then a draw versus Leicester. So all those results don't really help me, don't really help guide me in the direction I want to go in, right? Especially with looking at my team statistics. Brighton is one of my worst teams to predict on the season so far. I think the one interesting thing I like to look at right now, especially with this much data that we have, with the odds being 2.25 for Brighton and their last match being a 3-1 loss at home to Crystal Palace, it does make me feel like we could be okay giving Brighton the result here, right? So for this match, I'm going to go with a West Ham Brighton 2-1 win for Brighton. Crystal Palace versus Arsenal. Right away, we see Arsenal at 1.61, and I just cannot imagine why they're 1.61, right? They're coming off a draw versus Everton. They absolutely need to win this match, but still 1.61, kind of crazy to me. Crystal Palace is 5.25. The draw is 4.1. So the first thing I want to see is, does Crystal Palace deserve respect at home? They have 1 win in their last 5, and the last 2 are draws, but the last 2 draws are pretty good draws, right? They drew City 2-2, and they drew Newcastle 1-1. So they were shooting above their level on both these draws here. But of course, when you think Crystal Palace at home, well, they did lose to Fulham 2-0, and they did lose to Liverpool 1-0 too. So Crystal Palace's home form is just kind of all over the place. It's not as good as I thought it would be. Arsenal away from home, they had a 1-1 draw versus Fulham and that 5-2 crazy win over West Ham. Historically, though, Arsenal have beaten them 5-0, 1-0, 4-1, 2-0, and they have lost to Crystal Palace in 2022 3-0. I don't feel like I can get myself to really go against Arsenal in this match. I don't think I can do it. Both teams' score is 1.91. The over-under sits at about 3. For Crystal Palace and Arsenal, I'm going to go with a 2-0 Arsenal win. Everton versus Chelsea. We see Chelsea at 1.57, Everton at 5.25, and the draw at 4.33. Over-under sits at about 3, which is probably pretty low for Chelsea overall, right? But I think that's giving respect to Everton at home here. Both teams' scores is sitting at 1.67, which is kind of surprising, right? We are coming off of a 0-0 Everton Arsenal match, and also just look at the matches in general here. We have 5 straight both teams to score no for Everton, but somehow the BTTS yes odds are 1.67. I don't really understand how that works out too much. Chelsea in their last 5 matches in the Prem have gone 4 matches BTTS yes out of 5. So already it's a bit interesting that Chelsea are the better team overall. They've been playing better. I wonder why they think Everton and Chelsea will be BTTS based on the odds here. So historically, let's go see what it looks like. And actually, I want to see what it looks like at Everton specifically. So Everton have won 2-0, Chelsea have won 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 3-1. Nothing really points in the direction of this match going BTTS yes, except the odds. That's kind of where it's a bit crazy for me. So in this match, Everton and Chelsea, I'm going to go with a 2-1 Chelsea win. Fulham versus Southampton. Right away, we see Fulham at 1.42 on the money line, Southampton at 6.75 with the draw at 5. Over under for this match is at about 3.25, maybe it'll close closer to 3.5 on match day. currently. Both teams' score is sitting at 1.7. I guess they're really not expecting Southampton to score based on the BTTS odds. Fulham at home, the inconsistent form here, loss, win, draw. Nothing that can really help us out here. You can draw versus Arsenal, but you'll lose to Wolves 4-1. Not really sure how we can make anything of that. Southampton away from home, haven't really gotten a win in their last 5 matches either. So with both teams' score being 1.7, the next thing I want to see is Fulham at home against Southampton if they've played recently. 2-1 Fulham win is kind of the idea, but the 1.7 BTTS is kind of uncertain for me. So Southampton, their away matches, they were not able to score against Villa. They scored against Brighton, got shut out against the Wolves, didn't score against City, scored against Arsenal. So Southampton scoring away from home is kind of 50-50 here. Fulham being a 50-50 team in themselves. For Fulham and Southampton, I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. Leicester versus Wolves, we see Wolves at 2.7 on the money line. Leicester is 2.45 on the money line with the draw at 3.6. The over-under for this match sits at 2.753. It'll probably close at 3, I'd imagine, and the both teams' scores at 1.53, which is expected to, we should see both these teams scoring. Leicester at home have just been all right. I mean, they have a nice win against West Ham here and a nice win against Bournemouth, but losses against Nottingham, Chelsea, and a draw. I would say that's a good draw versus Brighton. And then historically, we've seen a 2-1 Leicester win, a 4-0 Leicester win, a 2-1 Wolves win, which makes me want to click on the Leicester home form here to see what it looks like. So in the last couple of matches, we've seen 2 Leicester wins. One was 2-1, the other one was 1-0. For Leicester and Wolves, I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Manchester United and Bournemouth, we see Manchester United sitting here at 1.82 on the money line. Bournemouth is at 4 odds, and the draw is at 3.9. The over-under for this match sits right at 3, with the both teams score at 1.57. Nothing too surprising by either of those numbers. Manchester United at home have been pretty solid. Outside of that, Nottingham Forest 3-2 crazy loss for Manchester United. They beat Everton 4-0. They beat Leicester 3-0. So that's 2 wins recently in the Prem. They've won 1-0. Bournemouth away from home have still been pretty good, but they haven't really been challenged yet, right? In Bournemouth's last 2 matches, they did face Wolves where they won 4-2, and they did face Ipswich where they won 2-1. Surprising enough, though, they did concede 2 against Wolves and they conceded 1 against Ipswich. So they are pretty prone to getting scored on away from home. And then overall, we've seen a 2-2 draw, a 3-0 Bournemouth win in Old Trafford, a 1-0 United win away from home, a 3-0 United win, and a 5-2 United win. I'm a bit surprised about the odds being 1.85 for United here. I know after that crazy Manchester City win, you would think Manchester United are just on like better form, but the odds are kind of indicating that's a bit more of a closer match than you'd think. I feel like this match is going to be the real test of what Manchester United really are. For Manchester United and Bournemouth, I'm going to go with a 2-1 United win. And the biggest match of match week 17, we have Tottenham and Liverpool. We have Liverpool sitting at 1.77 odds. Tottenham is on 3.9. The over-under sits at about, the over-under, is it really at 4? That's pretty surprising. If that over-under is at 4, I'd be pretty surprised. That seems a bit crazy. So if the total's at 4 and both teams' score is at 1.33 and Liverpool are slight favorites, they are seeing fireworks in this match then. Tottenham at home, we've seen a 3-4 loss, 1-1 draw versus Fulham, a 2-1 loss to Ipswich, and then a 4-1 win against Villa. I mean, on one hand, we have them beating Aston Villa 4-1, and then on the same wavelength, right away, we have them losing to Ipswich at home, so that's kind of difficult right there. Liverpool away from home have been solid, no issues here. Recently, when they've played, we've seen a 4-2 Liverpool win, a 2-1 Tottenham win, a 4-3 Liverpool win, a 1-2 Liverpool win away from home, and then a 1-1 draw. I feel like this match can go in so many directions. I could see a lot of goals. I could also just see it being the last match day, very, very careful how they both play against each other, because I feel like they're both going to respect each other in this match. For Tottenham and Liverpool, I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. All right, boys, that wraps up the predictions for match week 17. If you haven't already, I would really appreciate if you liked the video. Comment below what your correct score predictions are. Like I said, I love seeing your guys' predictions and seeing how you guys analyze the matches, what you agree with, what you don't disagree with. I do love reading them, so please leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, like the video, yada, yada, yada. I appreciate you, boys, and I will see you guys on the match week 18 predictions.